Profession, Section 2, beginning on the top of page 5. For the most part of his 18 years of his life, George Clayton had headed firmly in one direction, that of registered computer programmer. There were those in his crowd who spoke wisely of spacenautics, refrigeration, technology, transportation control, and even administration. But George held firm. He argued relative merits as vigorously as any of them. And why not? Education Day loomed ahead of them and was the great fact of their existence. It approached steadily, as fixed and certain as the calendar, the first day of November of the year following one's 18th birthday. After that day, there were other topics of conversation. One could discuss with others some detail of the profession, or the virtues of one's wife and children, or the fate of one's space polo team, or one's experience in the Olympics. Before Education Day, however, there was only one topic that unfailingly and unwearyingly held everyone's interest, and that was Education Day. What are you going for? Think you'll make it? Heck, that was no good. Look at the records. Quota's been cut. Logistics now, or hypermechanics now, or communications now, or gravatics now, especially gravatics at the moment. Everyone had been talking about gravatics in the past few years just before George's Education Day because of the development of the new gravatic power engine. Any world within 10 light years of a dwarf star, everyone said, would give its eye teeth for any kind of registered gravatics engineer. The thought of that had never bothered George. Sure, it would, all the eye teeth it could scare up, but George had also heard what had happened before in newly developed technique. Rationalization and simplification followed in a flood. New models each year, new types of gravatic engines, new principles. Then all those eye-teeth gentlemen would find themselves out of date and superseded by later models with later educations. The first group would have to settle down to unskilled labor or ship out to some backwoods world that wasn't quite caught up. Now, computer programmers were in steady demand year after year, century after century. The demand never reached wild peaks. There was never a howling bull market for programmers, but the demand climbed steadily as new worlds opened up and as older worlds grew more complex. He had argued with Stubby Trevelyan about that constantly. As best friends, their arguments had to be constant and vitriolic, and of course, neither ever persuaded or was persuaded. But then Trevelyan had a father who was a registered metallurgist and had actually served on one of the outworlds, and had a grandfather who also had been a registered metallurgist. He himself was intent on becoming a registered metallurgist almost as a matter of family right, and was firmly convinced that any other profession was a shade less than respectable. There'll always be metal, he said, and there's an accomplishment in molding alloys to specification and watching structures grow. Now, what's a programmer going to be doing? Sitting at a coder all day long, feeding some fool mile-long machine? Even at 16, George had learned to be practical. He said simply, "There'll be 1,000,000 metallurgists put out along with you." Because it's good. A good profession. The best. You get crowded out, Stubby. You can be way back in line. Any world can tape out its own metallurgists, and the market for advanced Earth models isn't so big. It's mostly the small worlds that want them. You know what % of the turnout of registered metallurgists get tapped for worlds with a grade A rating? I looked it up. It's just 13.3%. That means you'll have 7 chances in 8 of being stuck in some world that just about has running water. You may even be stuck on Earth. 2.3% are. Trevelyan said belligerently, "There's no disgrace in staying on Earth. Earth needs technicians too. Good ones." His grandfather had been an earthbound metallurgist, and Trevelyan lifted his finger to his upper lip and dabbed at an as-yet non-existent mustache. George knew about Trevelyan's grandfather, and considering the earthbound position of his own ancestry, was in no mood to sneer. He said diplomatically, "No intellectual disgrace, of course not. But it's nice to get into a grade A world, isn't it? Now you take programmers. Only the grade A worlds have the kind of computers that really need first-class programmers, so they're the only ones in the market. And programmer tapes are complicated, and hardly anyone fits. They need more programmers than their own population can supply. It's just a matter of statistics. There's one first-class programmer per million. A world needs 20 and has a population of 10 million. They have to come to Earth for 5 to 15 programmers, right? And you know how many registered computer programmers went to grade A planets last year? I'll tell you, every last one. If you're a programmer, you're a picked man. Yes, sir." Trevelyan frowned. "If only 1 in a million makes it, what makes you think you'll make it?" George said guardedly, "I'll make it." He never dared tell anyone, not Trevelyan, not his parents, of exactly what he was doing that made him so confident. But he wasn't worried. He was simply confident. That was the worst of the memories he had in the hopeless days afterward. He was as blatantly confident as the average 8-year-old kid approaching reading day. That childhood preview of Education Day.